Delighted to be with you today. Thank you all for coming out. Thanks for that parade yesterday. Doggone it, I saw that on TV. How about give it up for the golf cart parade? I just saw some of them out in the parking lot. That was awesome. Great job. Great job. I'll tell you what, it's amazing for me to think, and very humbling for me to think, that just 2 short months ago, with my wife at my side, I accepted my party's nomination. This small-town boy from southern Indiana, this grandson of an immigrant, I accepted my party's nomination to run and serve as the next Vice President of the United States of America. And I couldn't be more honored. I appreciate that introduction by Congressman DeSantis very much, but while we didn't serve together, he knows me well enough to know the introduction I prefer is a little shorter. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order. Thank you. And I got to tell you, I joined this campaign in a heartbeat, because you have nominated a man for president who never quits, who never backs down. He is a fighter, he is a winner, and until very recently it seemed like he was out there fighting all on his own, but now this movement is coming together, this party is coming together, and we're going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States of America. I mean, the momentum is palpable. It is really extraordinary. From here in Florida to where I'll be Monday in Iowa, all across the land, more and more people are coming together each and every day. And people ask me why. You know, I've gotten to know this good man. I've seen him when the Klieg lights are off, the cameras are off, and people say to me, what is it about him? And I say, Donald Trump just gets it. Am I right? I mean, he's a genuine article. He's a distinctly American leader who drives those liberals over in Europe just crazy. I mean, he's a doer in a game usually reserved for talkers. And when he does his talking, he doesn't go tiptoeing around those thousands of rules of political correctness that they put in the path of men and women who want to make a difference. Donald Trump speaks from his heart, speaks from his mind, and the American people hear him loud and clear. He really is kind of fun to watch. I mean, if you think about it. I mean, where would an independent spirit like Donald Trump find a following other than in the land of the free and the home of the brave? My thing is, the party in power seems helpless to figure out our party's nominee. And of course, I'm talking about the media. I mean, seriously though, I mean, the media, the Democrats, I mean, each and every day I get up and they say, now they got him now. I mean, I'll be honest with you, the media spends more time talking about what Donald Trump said in the last 30 minutes than what they do talking about what the Clintons have been up to for the last 30 years, but we're going to change all that. I'm going to change all that a little bit today at the Villages. I'll catch you up in case you're behind. But it is kind of amusing to watch. I mean, you know, you'll see him. I just did a TV show they're going to air tomorrow morning, you know. And they go, oh, I got him now. We got that tweet. We got him on that tweet. We got him on that word, he said. Finally, they think they finally done him in, and then they turn on the TV. That tweet. We got him on that tweet. We got him on that word, he said. Finally, they think they finally done him in, and then they turn on the TV the next morning, and Donald Trump is still standing strong and fighting for the American people, and he's going to fight all the way to the White House. The man just never quits. There's no quit in the man. You know, it's extraordinary in these times in which we live. You know, when I think about these times, I travel all across the country campaigning with Donald Trump and for Donald Trump. I just can't help but feel that, you know, the American people are tired of being told. And we're tired of being told this is as good as it gets. We're tired of being told by politicians, frankly, in both political parties, that they'll get to solving those intractable problems tomorrow while they pile a mountain range of debt on our children and our grandchildren. I think they're tired of being told, like Ronald Reagan used to say, that quote, a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives better for us than we can plan them for ourselves. They're tired of being told that things have to be this way. And that's why Donald Trump is telling the establishment in Washington, D.C. and in the media a different story. It doesn't have to be this way. America can be strong. America can stand tall again. And that begins the day that Donald Trump becomes president of the United States of America. You know, he truly is a remarkable man. Even though he's built a global name and reputation, an incredible business, he's a man, to know him is to know someone who's never forgotten the men and women in this country who work with their hands, who grow the food, who build the roads and bridges, who attend our sick, who teach our kids. I mean, to be out on the campaign trail, or out, as I've had the privilege to be, among the places of business with Donald Trump, is to see a man where the ground is level around Donald Trump. He's as comfortable with the guy laying the bricks as he is with the accounting people upstairs in the big fancy offices. And let me tell you, that Donald Trump has never forgotten the men and women in this country who serve in law enforcement in our cities and our towns and our states. He's never forgotten. He never will. You know, this is a very challenging time for men and women in our law enforcement community. Just in the last 24 hours, I urge you to remember in your hearts and in your prayers 2 police officers shot in Philadelphia in the line of duty, 2 police officers full well what it means shot in the line of duty in Fort Worth. You know, my uncle was a police officer in Chicago, Illinois, a long time ago. Served about 25 years. I know full well what it means to have a family member walk out the door in the morning for a job that they may not walk in the door at night. Can we just take a minute? We've got a lot of members of law enforcement here. Would you mind just showing all the men and women in law enforcement here in Florida how much we appreciate what they do and what their families do each and every day to protect our families? Thanks, everybody. You know, I'm so proud to say yesterday Donald Trump was actually endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police, the largest organization supporting police officers in the United States of America. 330,000 men and women who serve on the thin blue line have now endorsed Donald Trump as our next president. It's because they know what we know. That Donald Trump is the law and order candidate in this race. As the chief law enforcement officer of the United States of America, I will promise you a President Donald Trump will stand with the men and women in law enforcement in this country at every level. We will make sure they have the resources to protect our families and go home safe to theirs. You know, it's an amazing time. At the very moment when America is crying out for something new and different, the other party has actually answered with a stale agenda and the most predictable of names. Isn't it remarkable? I mean, people in both political parties are restless for change. We know we can do better. We know we can be stronger. And the other party has literally nominated someone who represents everything the country is tired of. You know, a few weeks back, their party's nominee actually tweeted, quote, "The last thing we need is a president who brings more name-calling to Washington, D.C." Well, about a week ago, she did a fair amount of that herself. I'm not sure what name she didn't call. Did you hear about this? She was in a big New York City fancy schmancy fundraiser. Barbara Streisand was there. Hillary Clinton said these words, in case you missed them. Quote, "You could put half of Trump's supporters in what I call the basket of deplorables, right? Racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it." She said they were irredeemable and not America. Now, her running mate, Tim Kaine, said she didn't need to apologize, but she ended up saying she regretted saying half. Men and women, I'll tell you what right now. The only thing that's deplorable is having a candidate for national office with that low an opinion of millions of Americans. I'm out every day across this country seeing people that support my running mate, support this team, and are part of this movement. They are hard-working Americans, men and women. They are students, they are seniors, they are factory workers, they are coal miners, they are business owners, they are veterans, they are members of our armed forces. Hillary Clinton, they are not a basket of deplorables, they are Americans, and they deserve your respect and the respect of every person in this nation. I got to tell you, the other side just has a campaign of insults. They really do. That's really not what this election is all about. It really is about a couple things I came here to share with you. It's about security. It's about prosperity. It's about our Supreme Court. And it's about ensuring we have the highest standards of integrity in the highest office in the land. Let's start with security. The Congressman mentioned it a minute ago. 7.5 years of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton's leadership has weakened America's place in the world. It's undeniable. Terrorist attacks at home and abroad, a wider Middle East spinning out of control. History teaches us that weakness arouses evil. And I would submit to you that the foreign policy of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton of having America lead from behind, feigning resets with Russia, reckless and irresponsible withdrawal of all forces from Iraq, moving red lines, the rise, rule, and reign of ISIS are all a testament to this truth of history.
Don't forget the video.
The extraordinary part as well is this is an administration that actually, on the day that 4 Americans were released from captivity by the radical mullahs in Iran, delivered $400 million in cash on a pallet as a ransom payment. Well, let me make you a promise. When Donald Trump is leader of the free world, we won't be paying ransom to terrorist sponsoring states. They'll be paying a price. If they detain, if they threaten, or if they harm American citizens. Despite traveling millions of miles as Secretary of State, the world is more dangerous today than the day that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton took over America's foreign policy. But specifically on Hillary, just remember this, it was actually Hillary Clinton who instigated that disastrous agreement with the radical mullahs in Iran. In a very real sense, that treaty, I hope you know, didn't prevent Iran from gaining a nuclear weapon. At best case, they just hope it delayed it in exchange for $150 billion and lots of currency. It was Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama who made the decision to withdraw all American forces from Iraq in 2012. I served on the Foreign Affairs Committee like your good congressman has. I made a decision to travel downrange to visit our troops in places like Ramadi and Mosul and Baghdad, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom. of Hoosier soldiers who went home to be with the Lord rather than coming home to be with their family, paid the ultimate sacrifice. It is extraordinary to think that the hard-fought gains that resulted in Iraq being essentially stable in 2009 when Barack Obama took office were squandered by this administration's relentless effort to remove all troops by a certain deadline. You know, before I move on, I see a few hats in the room. I know this congressman will do it. Could you stand if you're able, or otherwise raise your hand if you've worn the uniform of the United States of America and served this country in our armed forces? Thank you for your service. It just grieves my heart to think of what was squandered and what our soldiers won through hard-fought battles in Operation Iraqi Freedom. And lastly, I would say the American people need to know that it was Hillary Clinton and her State Department who left Americans in harm's way in Benghazi. And after 4 Americans fell, she told the parents of the fallen that it was a result of a video that had been produced instead of the terrorist attack that the investigation actually showed that she knew it was on the very night of the attack. And then when she was asked about it before a Senate committee, she actually said, and I quote, "What difference at this point does it make?" Well, as the proud father of a United States Marine, let me say this: anyone who said that, anyone who did that, should be disqualified from ever serving as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States of America. We cannot have 4 more years apologizing to our enemies and abandoning our friends. America needs to be strong for the world to be safe. And on the world stage, I promise you, Donald Trump will lead with strength. He will rebuild our military. He will stand with our allies and stand up to those who threaten us. Maybe that's why so far 160 retired admirals and generals have endorsed Donald Trump, including 14 Medal of Honor winners, to be our next Commander-in-Chief. They know what the American people know, that when he becomes Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States of America, Donald Trump will rebuild our military. He will restore the arsenal of democracy. He will stand with our allies, and he will stand up to our enemies, and he will hunt down and destroy ISIS so that it cannot bring violence to Americans or our allies. So it's about security, folks, but it's also about prosperity. We're standing here today in Florida in the midst of the weakest economic recovery since the Great Depression. We have the lowest labor participation rate in this country today since the 1970s, when I was graduating from high school back in Columbus, Indiana. Most heartbreaking of all, here are the facts. Despite the rosy speeches that are given by the other side about how everything's great in America, today nearly 7 million more Americans are living in poverty than the day that Barack Obama became president of the United States. Hillary Clinton's plan, more of the same. More taxes, more regulation, more spending, more Obamacare, and more of the war on American energy that has cost jobs and stifled economic growth. I mean, it really is amazing. She gave a couple months ago. I mean, I watched most of it at her convention. I mean, I had as hard a time staying awake as her husband did, truthfully, right? It wasn't just that it was late, it was just there wasn't anything new in there. I mean, literally, Hillary Clinton is running to lead Barack Obama's third term. The policies are all the same. The policies that have run our nation's economy into this ditch. Now, they tell us it's the best we can do. But here in Florida, at this great gathering at the Villages, we know it's nowhere near the best that we can do. It's just the best they can do. And when Donald Trump becomes president of the United States of America, things are going to change. We're going to get people back to work in every city and every town across Florida and all across the United States of America. Because Donald Trump has a plan. He has a plan. It's what's worked before and it'll work again, right? I mean, what's that old saying that, the definition of insanity is to continue to do the same thing and expect a different result? Well, we're not going to continue to do the same thing. Rather than Hillary Clinton's plan to raise taxes on working families, small businesses, and family farms, Donald Trump and I, we're going to work with this great re-elected Congress. We're going to cut taxes across the board for working families, small businesses. We're going to end death taxes once and for all, and we're going to lower business taxes so businesses here in Florida can compete and keep jobs in the United States of America. And Donald Trump and I know that, you got kind of two forms of ways that the government can use your money. Number one, they can tax it and take it and spend it, or they can pass a regulation and tell you how to spend it. So Donald Trump is, on this first day in office, going to do what we did back in the Hoosier State when I became governor. He's going to sign a moratorium on any new federal regulation to stop the avalanche of red tape, and he's going to repeal every single Obama executive order that is stifling jobs and growth in Florida and all across America. And that's not all. On day one of this administration, it's not just about tax relief and reform. It's not just about rolling back red tape. We're going to end the war on coal and the war on American energy the day that Donald Trump becomes president. We're going to develop all the resources of this land and call forth its power and reignite the American economy. And when Donald Trump becomes president of the United States, we're going to have trade deals that work for American workers. You saw him go down to Mexico City, met with President Peña Nieto. Had a very cordial meeting. They talked about what they agreed on. They talked about reforming NAFTA. Back when NAFTA was passed 20 years ago, it was supposed to be reviewed on a regular basis to make sure it was at least a win-win, but it hadn't really worked out that way. And so he gave him the word. And while I'm at it, don't have any doubt, we're going to build a wall. And Mexico's going to pay for it. So, tax reform, regulatory reform, trade reform, and energy reform. We're going to have smarter, tougher trade deals. We're going to get this economy moving again. It's all going to be the time-honored principles as well. I mean, the truth of the matter is what Donald Trump is talking about today is what Ronald Reagan did back in the 1980s. Frankly, it's also a lot of what John F. Kennedy did back in the 1960s. I like to say conservative principles work every time you put them into practice. And we're going to put common sense, conservative principles into practice and unleash the boundless potential of the American people and turn this economy loose. Economists like Larry Kudlow and Steve Moore, who you see on TV from time to time, and David Malpass, great people. They project that we can get this economy moving, not at the 1% level that it's cutting along right now, but get it back to 4%, or as My running mate likes to say even more than that, right? Now, Hillary Clinton thinks some of those projections are, in her words, wildly unrealistic. If you let people keep more of what they earn, you roll back red tape, you end the war on coal, you have smarter, tougher trade deals, she thinks that's not going to work. Wildly unrealistic. Well, Donald Trump and I know the only thing that's wildly unrealistic is assuming you can elect the same people with the same bad ideas and expect a different result. So it's about security. It's a clear choice on security, men and women. It's a clear choice on prosperity. But it's also, as your good congressman mentioned, it's one other issue for sure I want to mention to you, and I hope you'll tell your neighbors and friends here at the villages. It's Constitution Day here in America today. 226 years ago, 39 Americans came together, 1787. And they put their signatures to a document, one of the greatest documents of limited government and freedom in the history of mankind. I was a history major in college. I studied the American founding, which qualified me to get a job at the college when I graduated. My dad told me there wasn't a lot of market for history majors. But I just love the American founding. I love everything about it. I mean, these people were incredible. When they signed that Declaration of Independence and those words said they were pledging their lives, their fortunes, their sacred honor, there was a death sentence hanging over anyone that would sign a Declaration of Independence. And when they forged this Constitution in that balmy summer of 1787, they came together. They drew on all the great lessons of history, and they minted it all with these opening words. They're worth reflecting on today, because I think as Ron said, I think not only is this election about security, it's not only about prosperity, but it's about our Constitution. They wrote, "We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America." We are in their debt. We're in their debt. They formed a government that would become the framework of the freest and most prosperous nation in the history of mankind. Unimaginable prosperity. The kind of growth and strength that the world to this day marvels at. But as this election approaches, if you care about that Constitution, if you care about those God-given liberties that are enshrined in those first 10 amendments that we call the Bill of Rights, then you better think very carefully about your choice. You better remind your neighbors. I mean, I have to tell you, it seems like this administration, there's no aspect of our lives that's too small for this present administration to supervise. There's no provision of our Constitution too large for them to ignore. I mean, elect Hillary Clinton, and you better get used to being subject to more unelected judges using unaccountable power to take unconstitutional actions. But elect Donald Trump as your next president of the United States. And you will have a man who will appoint justices, not just to that one vacancy of the Supreme Court, to the 2 or 3 that are expected to come, who will stand without apology for the Constitution, for the rule of law, and for the liberties of the people of this land. If you care about limited government, if you care about the sanctity of life, if you care about the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, if you care about all our God-given liberties enshrined in that document, Florida, let's decide here and now that the next president to make appointments to the Supreme Court of the United States will be President Donald Trump. So it's about security. If you're taking notes, and I hope you are, so I want you to go tell somebody. Okay, this is an extraordinary community here at the Villages. I mean, go knock on the next door neighbor's door after you leave here today and say, I just heard from Mike, and he asked me to come by and tell you. Get on a golf cart, for crying out loud. Get back out there. But go tell people what this election is all about. It's about security, it's about prosperity, it's about our Constitution, but it's about one other thing. You know, it's actually gotten kind of hard to keep up with all that the media loves to chase after, with whatever the tweet is of the day or the line of the day. It's actually been hard to keep up with the avalanche of corruption flowing out of Hillary Clinton's years just as Secretary of State. I mean, you know, we actually learned the other day that when she was going through her confirmation hearing as Secretary of State, she was actually warned in her confirmation hearing that the Clinton Foundation could be used by foreign countries and foreign contributors as a place to give significant contributions to gain access and curry favor with the U.S. State Department. She was told that during her hearing, and she pledged to see to it that it didn't happen. But even though now that 15,000 more emails have come out that she didn't turn over, including documents, now we've actually seen in writing evidence that large foreign contributors, remember, foreign countries and foreign donors cannot participate in American politics. That foreign contributors who were giving tens of millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation were given access to, and in fact more than half of her private meetings as Secretary of State were Clinton Foundation donors. It's extraordinary. I mean, the FBI, we learned a couple months ago, actually thought about initiating an investigation, a public corruption investigation into the Clinton Foundation, and the Obama Justice Department shut it down. Now the Clintons have said that if they're elected president, they'll no longer accept foreign contributions because it would be a conflict of interest. Well, if it would be a conflict of interest if Hillary was president, how was it not a conflict of interest when she was Secretary of State of the United States of America? The American people deserve to ask that question. I mean, the truth is the American people are sick and tired of pay-to-play politics, and that kind of politics is going to come to a crashing end the day that Donald Trump becomes president of the United States, because his only special interest will be you, the American people, who will fight for every single day. So men and women, we must have the highest standards of integrity in the highest office in the land, and it's that fourth point I wanted you to have. Before I close, though, let me leave you with one more thought. I mean, the choice in this election could not be more clear. The American people can elect someone who literally personifies everything we're tired of in a failed establishment in Washington, D.C., or we can elect a truth teller, a builder, someone who will have America standing strong at home and abroad once. Not for the special interests that line the streets of Washington, D.C., but every single day he'll get up like he does every day of this campaign and fight for the American people. That's the choice. It really is. But I have to tell you, while this is a choice and more dramatic than any choice that I've ever seen in my lifetime, I still have to tell you, Donald Trump and I both believe that while there's so many things these days that divide us, so few great purposes that unite us as they once did. It seems like politicians are always very quick to get out a litany of divisive statements to separate one American from another. But Donald Trump and I were raised different. We were raised to believe that there will always be more that unites us in the United States of America than will ever divide the good people of this nation. We believe it. We believe it. And I truly do believe what unites us most is two things. First, it's our belief in this country. It's a radical idea, minted on these shores, that anybody can be anybody. I mean, in a very real sense, Donald Trump and I both grew up with a front row seat to the American dream. And we lived it, like so many of you. My grandfather grew up in a 2-room house with 10 brothers and sisters in Ireland. Got a one-way ticket to come across what he called the pond. Took a train to Chicago, Illinois, drove a bus there for 40 years. Proudest man I ever knew. I was named after him. I can't imagine what that Irishman is thinking today. But like my grandfather, Donald Trump's grandfather came over to this country. Like my dad, my dad married my mom and took her down to southern Indiana and ran a little gas station business for a lot of years. He's a self-made man. Donald Trump's dad was a self-made man, built a great business, lived in that little Tudor house in Queens, little 2-story house. I mean, both of us were raised with the belief that to whom much is given, much will be required. So for Donald Trump, that meant the kid from Queens would move to Manhattan Island and he'd build bigger buildings than you could possibly imagine in a global enterprise. For me, it was a calling into public service. I mean, I love to tell people, other than a whole lot of zeros, Donald Trump and I have an awful lot in common. A whole lot. And what we have in common is we both love this country because our families, we've lived that American dream. And when you leave here today and you tap on the door of your neighbor, or you jump on that golf cart or wherever you're going to go, and you tell somebody, I hope you tell them about the choice that we've got to tell people what the choice is here. Elections are about choices, okay? But I also hope you tell them that you have nominated a man and he has selected a running mate who love this country and believe that we can make the American dream come back alive for every American, regardless of race or creed or color or gender, and we're going to fight every day to bring vitality back to the American dream. Go tell them that. Go tell them that. And lastly, what unites us is not just a belief in America and in the boundless potential of every American, but it's Donald Trump is a man with a heart of faith. Faith in the American people and faith in God. And he and I both know that old book says where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom. And that we are now and shall ever be one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So men and women of Florida here at the Villages, it is great to be with you. I'm going to a Gators game tonight. That's like a bucket list thing for me. You guys know how to play some football down here. But it's been wonderful to be with you all. But I hope you didn't just come here to hear a speech. I hope you came here to pick up a burden. I really do. You know, we got about 8 weeks left in this deal. And I'll tell you what, there's tremendous momentum out there, but it's only because People are leaving places like this and they're going and they're telling somebody. They're telling a neighbor and a friend. They're sitting down over a kitchen table. They're stopping people at worship, at work. And they're explaining to them what this choice is. And I want to encourage you to do that from the bottom of my heart. Because I got to tell you, we got a choice. And tell your neighbors and friends, this isn't a choice. Sometimes you have an election where it's going to be America, or Florida's going to do this much better or this much better, right? This isn't that way at all. I mean, truthfully, this is whether or not we're going to continue down the hill that has weakened America's place in the world, stifled America's economy, walked away from our founding principles and our high standards of integrity, or whether we are going to plant our feet as Americans, turn around, and start to march back up the hill to greater freedom, greater prosperity, and a stronger America at home and abroad. That's what this choice is. That's what this choice is. So you got to go tell people. So let me just say to each and every one of you, if you want a president who will protect this nation, who will rebuild our military, who will stand with our allies, stand up to our enemies, and who will confront radical Islamic terrorism and destroy ISIS at its source, if you want a president who will restore law and order to every city and every town in this nation and stand by our law enforcement with the resources and support they need and deserve. If you want a president who will cut taxes, grow our economy, squeeze every nickel out of that bloated federal bureaucracy. I like that one. And repeal Obamacare, lock, stock, and barrel. If you want a president who's going to build a wall, restore strong borders, enforce the laws of this nation for the citizens of this nation and those who are here legally. And lastly, if you want a president, I guarantee you this. If you want a president who will upend the status quo in Washington, D.C. and uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, then I would say to you, Florida, we just have one choice, and that man is ready. This team is ready. This movement is ready. Let's go make sure Florida is ready, and we will elect Donald Trump as the 45th president of the United States, and we will make America great again. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Let's go get it done.